Okay, perfect. Thank you, Johnny. So hello, everybody. Thanks for joining this presentation of the first virtual academic week. Before beginning, just a quick reminder, please keep your microphones off and cameras on for better interaction. And you can interact with the speaker as you request your participation, or you can drop your comment or question in the chat box for the Q&A session almost at the end of the presentation. For the attendance, I will drop the link to the form in the chat box at the end of the session. Just to give you an overview of today's presentation, our guest speaker will be talking about online learning and emergency remote teaching as a new normal in ELT. In this webinar, we will explore different tips to make students feel at ease and create a sense of community in classes despite the circumstances. Furthermore, tricks and useful technology tools will be provided to make teachers work more efficiently and effectively. Without further ado, let me introduce you to our guest speaker this morning. He's Master Jonathan Elizondo Mejia. Mr. Elizondo holds a master's in teaching English as a foreign language and a bachelor's in primary education with emphasis in English teaching, both degrees from Universidad de Costa Rica. He's currently pursuing a licentiate degree in English teaching after having obtained his bachelor in the same major at Universidad Americana. Jonathan has experience teaching English to different age groups. At present, he works for the Ministry of Public Education at Universidad Estatal a Distancia in the English teaching major, and as an international speaking examiner for Cambridge Assessment English. He has also worked as a facilitator for Instituto Cultural Dominico-Americano in the Dominican Republic. Here to speak to us about tricks and tips to shorten the distance during online teaching, please welcome Master Jonathan Elizondo. So good morning, Jonathan. Room is all yours.
Good morning, Cynthia. Thank you very much for that great introduction, and thank you for having me today with you. Just before I share my screen, I would like to thank everybody. I see many people, 83 participants already, and numbers are going up. And I have to apologize in advance because I had to move my small office to a section close to the street and close to where my dogs are. So sometimes they get a little excited when they see other dogs or when they see people going by. So I apologize in advance for any interruptions, okay? I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know if you can see my presentation, Cynthia.
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay, now you are supposed to see it full screen, right?
Correct.
Okay, as Cynthia said at the beginning, I'm going to have the chat open here. And if you have any questions at any point, feel free to put your questions into the chat. Also, I'm going to be asking you to participate in the chat, and we're going to be using different apps. So if you have your phone with you, have it ready to read QR codes, and I'm going to be sending you some links. We're going to be using Mentimeter and Padlet as part of the presentation as well. So as you can see, tips and tricks to shorten the distance in online teaching. And there are 4 different icons over there. One is the microphone. So I would appreciate if you have your microphones off or muted during the presentation, so we don't have interruptions like background noises or things that we don't want to hear. Raise your hand at the end of the session. I'm going to open the floor for questions, so you can type them in the chat, or you can also raise your hand and participate. Use the chat whenever you feel like, and enjoy, which is the face with the hearts over there. So why tips and tricks to shorten the distance in online teaching? Well, I've been working at Universidad Estatal a Distancia for about 4 years now. And during all this time, I had been working with Moodle and kind of online teaching, but not 100%. We were actually having tutoring sessions where students showed up to the different centers, and we would teach them, or we would have these tutoring sessions to clarify doubts and for oral presentations and everything else. But last year we went totally virtually. So because of the pandemic. And then I started thinking, what are some of the things we teachers can do to shorten that distance? And when I talk about shorten the distance, I'm more talking, and you will see throughout the presentation, that it's more about the emotional distance that we sometimes put, because there is a screen and there is a long distance between us and our students, but sometimes that is not or that doesn't affect the learning process as much as the emotional distance does. So these are the, okay, so this is what I'm going to be talking about and why I would like to talk about to you. Now, before I continue, I would like to start with a very quick round of what is something you're grateful for today or this week. You can type that in the chat. What is something that you say, I am very grateful for this today or this week? I must say that I'm very
Vamos a ver
grateful
que yo tenía
for this
20 años
opportunity,
para decir que
and
me
I'm very
compré.
grateful about this
Me costó
opportunity, and I'm
comprar
very
porque costaba
grateful
1000,
for
pero 1000
health and for
décimas,
my
¿verdad?
family as well. Okay, so what is something that you're grateful for today? You can type it. Okay, I see health. I'm healthy. My family and health. Very good. Okay, I see health as well. Adriana says my family, mhm, health, life, great, health and family, very good. Mhm. My life, okay. Well, you see that there are pets and family, great. Study, what I love, excellent. So you see that there are many things that we should be grateful for in the smallest things. If you don't have an idea of what you can be grateful for, there is a blog I really like, and it's called 1000awesomethings.com. And this is a Canadian guy who started this in 2008 when he had a lot of difficulties. Remember, 2008 was a recession year worldwide, and he had a lot of trouble that year. He started this blog, and he talks about being grateful for cutting in line when you are in the supermarket and they open a new cashier, or when you at night you wake up and you turn your pillow and you feel the fresh part of the pillow at night, or smelling coffee when it's recently brewed. So it's great that we're grateful for something and many things. I appreciate that you're sharing with us. Now, what are the workshop objectives today? We're going to start by defining the concepts or some concepts related to online teaching. So this is a little bit about theory. We're also going to outline the importance of building presence and rapport during distance learning processes. And now, why is it that I call it distance learning and I don't talk about teaching? It's because I really like for us to think, or I would really like for us to think about this process as the learning process, and we teachers are just the means to that learning process. We're just the guide, and we're just the mediator of the learning process. So I want to the student to be the center of the process, and that's why I'm talking more about learning than teaching. Okay. We're going to differentiate between synchronous, asynchronous, and blended instruction. And then we're going to, if time allows us, we're going to experience some tools that enhance that learning process and might facilitate our teaching. Okay. So here is what we're going to be, or kind of the agenda. I want to know you a little bit. Then we're going to talk about building presence and rapport. We will talk about some decision making, look at some tools that help, and then we might be sharing some ideas together. Okay. So first, we're going to go to Menti. If you have your phones with you, you can just scan that code and go to menti.com. There is a presentation I'm going to share with you in a moment. And if you don't have the phone, you can go to menti.com, and then it's going to ask for a code. The code is 53683411. So I'm going to allow you some time for you to go there. And let's see if I can grab, I think I have here also Mm, Okay, here I have also the direct link that you can go. The code is 53683411. So I'm going to move to that particular part. Okay, let me go to the Menti, and you're going to see the code. You see it up here, 53683411. It's on top. So I see 11 people have connected already. I'm going to wait a little bit for more people to connect. So when you connect, you can click or tap on the heart that you see there. I see 16 people already. Tapping on the heart, 20 people. So we're 97 people. I'm going to wait and see if we can get at least to 50 people, and then I will move in the presentation, okay?
Excuse me, sir.
By the way, this is, yes, sir.
I cannot submit any code in the website.
Okay, you go to menti.com, and then it's going to ask for a code, and you type 53683411, and it will enter, and you will see something like what I'm showing right now. All right. This is actually one of the tools I really like to use, because now at a distance, sometimes students don't feel like they can participate with us. And what I do is that I really try for them to feel included. So this is one of the tools that we can actually use. Let me type the code over here. It's 53683411. Okay, very good. Thank you, Cynthia. It's menti.com is the website where you go. Okay, what I have is some questions for you, and these are personal questions. You don't have to worry if you have never used Menti before. This is totally anonymous, so don't worry about your answers, okay? But please, where we have open answers or open questions for open answers, just be mindful of the vocabulary you use and the ideas you post, okay? So the first question I have here is, what population do you currently or would you teach in the future? Is it preschool, elementary school, high school, or university? I want to know a little bit about you. So what is your current situation as a teacher, or what will your situation be in the future? I see 6 people from university, 12 from high school. Okay, elementary school, 1 person. It's because I want to know your situation. Okay, I see Julian, you have your hand raised. Yes?
Yeah, can we select 2 options or not?
No, you can actually select only one, but select the one that you feel most identified with.
Thank
Okay?
you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I see 30 people, 31 people, most people from high school. Then we have university, preschool, and elementary school are last. But at least I know that I have people from all the populations, okay? Very good. The next question, had you taught or had you learned, sorry about the mistake there, had you taught or had you learned online before 2020? How was your experience before 2020? Had you taught or had you learned online before 2020? I know many people might have had the experience, some others might not. And you see the numbers there. 22 people say, no, I had never experienced this before, either learning or teaching. All right, so this seems to be, or this was a new experience for most people. Okay, good. All right. So let me go to the next question. I see 71% of the people say no. Okay. This one, what do you like best about teaching or learning online? So if you're a teacher, what do you like the best about teaching online? If you are a learner, what do you like best about learning online? And here what you have to type is your ideas, and then you click submit, and we're going to see the answers here. Right? In case you're not able to join the Mentimeter, remember that you can actually type in the chat And then I'm also going to be reading the chat. So if you cannot enter the Menti, you can always use the chat to answer the questions. What would you like? What do you like best about teaching or learning online? Okay. I see variety of apps, time, asynchronous assignments. Some people say I hate it or nothing, which is really valid. I mean, we're talking here about our personal experiences and opinions, easier and flexible. Platforms for activities, PDF materials, activities, interaction, variety of apps, classes. Okay. And if you see any of the words that is a little bigger, except for the one that has an email address, if you see some words that are bigger, it's probably because people are repeating those a little bit more than the others, okay? Vocabulary, I save more money. Facilities. Let me tell you that what I like about teaching online, it's that I get to manage my time better. Like I personally, I was just, I finished having breakfast this morning and then I moved to my office and started this presentation. So another thing that I really like is that most of the times, depending on the situation, I just get to dress from the waist up, right? And then I wear pajamas and sandals, which I really like. I feel really comfortable. Another thing, as a learner, something that I like is that I can work at my own time. Like sometimes I don't have the time to go to a university because I have a lot of different jobs and a lot of different things to do. But if I do it online, I can work at 11 at night, or I can wake up at 4 in the morning. And then institutions are not open at that time, right? So that's something that I like. Thank you very much for your answers. Now, what do you find most difficult about teaching or learning at a distance? I can tell you personally that something that I find difficult about teaching is that sometimes it's difficult to have students participate. That is something that sometimes I find difficult. And that is why I need to come up with new strategies and I need to find new tools. And yes, I see here engagement. That is something that sometimes students don't really engage. Uh, Clearing doubts, it's sometimes difficult. If you are a student, you might have a doubt, a question, and then the teacher is not available. You feel alone. Nothing. Attention, I get distracted easily. That is the same. The same happens to me. It is more difficult to understand all the topics, many jobs, a lot of anxiety and safety. Yes, sometimes we get overload of work, right? And I think this has to do with us teachers. Sometimes we feel that since students are at home, they need to do more. And sometimes that is not true, right? They might be doing the same things they were doing at school or even less and still learning a lot. Connection with people. Yes, connections are something that we need to work on. Understanding is sometimes impossible. It's hard to concentrate, a lot of homework, time, loneliness. Very good. I'm teaching and I find difficult to make my students talk and participate in the class. Very good. Thank you very much again. One more question from 1 to 5. How comfortable do you feel using the following? Zoom, Teams, and Meet. Now, 1 is not very comfortable and 5 is very comfortable. Collaborative documents, meaning Google Docs or Google Slides or the Drive. Quizzes, Kahoot, and Bamboozle. These are games. Mentimeter, Poll Everywhere, and Direct Poll. These are tools like the one we're using right now where students can actually interact with us in real time. We can include there in Mentimeter, Poll Everywhere, and Direct Poll. We can include things like Padlet that we can see immediately what people post. So how comfortable do you feel using those? It can be as a teacher or as a student. So if I have to assign a collaborative document to my students, it seems that that's the one that is giving us a little bit more problems. But then we see that quizzes, Kahoot, and Bamboozle, you're quite comfortable. Zoom, Teams, and Meet as well. There are many other tools that we can use over there. All right, great. Thank you. Thinking about your last lesson taught or received, what would be a change you want to make? And when we are teachers, we're always reflecting about our own teaching. So we can say, as a teacher, I would like to change this particular part in my last lesson. Now, as a student, we usually are even more critical. And we say, my teacher did this that I didn't like. I really would like that to change. So what is one thing that you would like to change? And I see this one more humanity. I'm glad to see that one because this is something we're going to be talking about today. And it's talking about that human part, that emotional part that we teachers and students have, and we shouldn't forget about that. More activities because students get bored, more interactions, more interactive. The activities and the way the lesson is developed, students' motivation, all right. Now, when we talk about motivation, there are so many different aspects. We can be talking about extrinsic or intrinsic motivation. We need to find out as a teacher or as a student, what is it that is demotivating me? Is it something inside or is it something outside? Is it maybe that I didn't sleep very well last night? So it's basically no one to blame because I had a lot of work to do, or maybe I just had a bad night, a rough night. So that is I cannot find an external factor maybe, or is it the class? Is it my classmates? Okay, more interaction I see there. I do not make students feel frustrated. Yes, very good, great, thank you. Okay, now if we go to the next one, what is one successful activity you had in your last online class? If you think about your last class as a student or as a teacher, what was something very successful? I don't know, it might have been that conversation we had. It might have been the breakout rooms. I see the role plays. There's someone say nothing, which is really valid. For this person, maybe I didn't find anything that was successful during the class. It was interactive, no new applications, Zoom annotation, nothing, oral presentations. Okay, very good. The oral presentations, the Zoom tools. All right, the new apps, a nice presentation. Excellent. Okay, please remember to keep your microphones muted. Okay, very good. So I'm going to go back to my presentation here. Let me just go one more time into present. Okay, so this is actually the new normal, and something like what we were doing and what we were talking about, what you were sharing with me, is the new normal. Meaning we have to just one moment to make sure I'm sharing there. Okay, are you seeing the presentation?
Yes.
You
correct.
can, okay, thank you.
Yes.
So actually, you can, this is the new normal. Things like the ones we were actually doing and talking about, it's really normal. Now, the question I have heard many specialists, and I kind of agree, can we talk about it as the new normal, or is this just the normal? Because I mean, we've been doing this for a year and a half now, so it doesn't seem to be the new normal, but the normal, okay? And when we have this, there are some questions that we might be asking ourselves as teachers. Number one, what am I actually doing? Is it online learning? Is it e-learning? Is it virtual learning? Is it distance education? What concept? What am I doing? I don't know. They just sent me this notification from now on, you have to do this and this and this, but what am I actually doing? We might have a lot of different questions. Another question is, are my students really learning? Because I started thinking, are they really learning? And I have found myself wondering about this question. I teach and teach and teach. I ask them to do different things, but how much are they learning? When I evaluate them, and that was one of the comments in the Mentimeter, When you evaluate your students, sometimes you feel like evaluation is difficult. How do I know that it's my students the one who are taking those exams and not their parents, in my case that I work in elementary school? Or how do I know that my students are not cheating if it is at the university, or if this is in high school, that they are not connected in an extra WhatsApp group sharing answers and questions? So that is something that we might be asking ourselves. Am I doing it right? Are there any other ways that I can do it? And I think to this question, there is always a way in which we can improve. There is always room for improvement. And so we need to always know that there are things that we can do better. But I think in this environment and in this modality, there is no right and wrong. There are just different ways in which we do things, okay? And another question is, how do I make it more appealing? How, and what you were talking about, how do you make your students, or how do you make your students engage? How do you make them feel motivated? How do you make them really want to connect? We have our class on Thursdays at 10 in the morning. How do I really make sure that my students want to be there, that they are going to connect at 9:50 or 9:55 before the class starts, and not at 11 with the excuse, teacher, I didn't have internet connection, and then you realize that they were posting on Facebook, that they were active in WhatsApp, etc. Right? So how do I make it more appealing? Now I'm going to try to give you some answers and some hints to some of these questions, okay? But before that, we need to define e-learning or virtual learning. And for the purpose of this presentation, I know there are a lot of different theories and a lot of different concepts. We have e-learning, we have bimodal learning, we have mobile learning, and we have online learning. But I found this definition from Garcia Aretio. Lorenzo Garcia Aretio is one of the experts worldwide on distance education. And in 2011, he actually said, and I found this thanks to a research I'm carrying out with a colleague from Tecnológico de Costa Rica, and it's that e-learning and online learning are no other than a format of distance education supported on digital technologies and ICT. So I really like this definition because no matter what we are doing, we need to make sure that we understand that it doesn't matter the concept, we're doing distance education. Why? Because teachers and students are not in the same place. There is a physical distance, and sometimes there is even a time distance. I prepare materials, I upload it into a platform, and then my students are going to be using that material not today, but maybe tomorrow or the following day. So we need to make sure that we understand that it doesn't matter what concept we're working, but for the purposes of this presentation, when I say online learning or e-learning or distance education, it's kind of the same. It's distance education supported on digital technologies and ICTs, okay? Now, what aspects do you consider when planning online interactions? I want you to use the chat here, and I want you to type an answer to these questions. If you have to plan online interactions, if you have to plan an online class, what are those aspects that you consider when planning those interactions? And then I will show you my ideas, but I would like to hear yours first. So while you type in the chat the answer, I'm going to mute myself and just get a sip of water to Okay, I see Julian says the people I'm working with. So I consider my audience pretty much. My students, are they elementary school students? Are they high school students, or are they university students? Engaging activities. That's something that Christina says she talks about, or she considers. Student facilities, the purpose, time, internet connection, access to internet, the level they have. Okay. Anything else? I want to hear more ideas, or I want to read actually more ideas over here. Students' needs, great, thank you. The correct usage of time, student level, objectives of the session, amazing ideas, great. So what I want to show you with this slide is that basically planning an online interaction is not that different from planning a face-to-face interaction in the aspects that we need to consider. Because when I plan for online interactions, I think about the contents, okay? I need to think, what is it that I need my students to learn? I also think about the time. How much time do I have? Am I going to do it synchronously or asynchronously, which is part of the time? I need to consider the skills. Do I want to develop reading, writing, listening, speaking? Is it vocabulary, pronunciation, intonation? What is it that I'm going to use with my students? I need to think about the evaluation. How am I going to evaluate my students? Am I going to do formative assessment or am I going to do summative assessment? Is it going to be peer assessment? Is it going to be hetero assessment or is it going to be self-assessment, okay? And then I need to think about the goals. What are the goals that I have? Thinking about the contents and thinking about the skills. What is the goal for my class? So after this, I can start adding more things that are related to the technology I'm going to use, of course. Is it going to be via Zoom or Teams or WhatsApp? Or am I going to upload it into Moodle or Canvas or Blackboard? What platform am I going to use, right? Now, there are 7 requisites for distance education. I'm going to mention the requisites first, and at the end, you're going to see the year where these requisites were actually, what is it, implemented or were actually said by the person. And you're going to be surprised because they are not that new. But the first requisite for distance education is that we need teacher-student motivational relationship. This means that we teachers need to motivate our students, but there is also a quota of motivation from the students in the teacher. When you were talking about human relationships, if I don't motivate my students, they are not going to feel, or if I don't show my human part to my students, they're not going to feel that motivated because it's like, oh, the teacher is not there for me. But if as a teacher, I don't see my students participating, I'm also going to feel demotivated. And probably next class, it's going to be less participatory and more kind of in a talk form, right? I'm going to be talking or lecturing because anyways, my students are not going to participate. So there needs to be that motivational relationship between the student and the teacher. Also, there needs to be self-regulation and self-instruction. Now, self-instruction is learning to learn, is I as a student need to know how to learn on my own. This is part of the autonomy that I need to have. And self-regulation, when you were talking about, I get distracted really easily, it's difficult to me to sit down and pay attention. So what self-regulation strategies are you implementing? This self-regulation is knowing myself and knowing the strategies that I need to put into practice to make sure that I accomplish my goals. That is part of the self-regulation. Now, in terms of face-to-face instruction, self-regulation is not always that necessary because the teacher is there. So the teacher can actually call my attention and say, Jonathan, you're not paying attention. Or Jonathan, please copy this. Or I don't know, Andre, please go ahead and write this into your notebook. Or he can be asking questions to me, or he can be giving me some hints on what should I do. But when I don't have the teacher and I work at the distance education, I need to make sure I use that self-regulation. So now either or you are a student or a teacher, just think about that self-regulation. And next time you are at a distance education, just think about that. What should I do to avoid distractions? What should I do to memorize this content? What is it that I should do to actually pay more attention in class? Then I need adequate feedback. Now, by adequate feedback, it's not just telling students what they did wrong, it's also giving them some orientation on how to improve. That is the part of the adequate feedback, okay? It's not just marking with red. It's also telling the student, go to page number 11, do this exercise, go to this extra website. for you to actually learn a little bit more. Because again, I am not with my students. If I provide them the adequate feedback, they're going to be able to work on their own. As requisite number 4, friendship-like relationship. Now, here I don't want you to get distracted with the part of friendship. It's not that we need to become best friends with our students or with our teachers, because there is a saying, and I think it was, if I'm not wrong, it was Chomsky or Brown, the one who said, if you want to become a buddy, you become a nobody. So the moment you want to be your students' best friends, you lose certain respect and they feel like, oh, I can do whatever I want here. Now, a friendship-like relationship, if I think about my friends, my real friends, we respect each other, we support each other, we listen to each other, and we help each other. So that is when we think about the friendship-like relationship. I need to help my students, I need to be supportive, I need to be respectful, but also my students need to do the same to me. Okay. Number 5, dialogue to get to meaningful learning. There should be some dialogue. And there is a whole theory about dialogue in didactic materials. If you have seen these materials, at UNED, for example, we have a lot of those. It's when we are talking with the students in writing, for example. And then you see, as we have studied, now I invite you to go to this page. Now please complete this chart. So that dialogue that we keep in our materials leads to meaningful learning. Why? Because my students are not only reading and reading, but they're also reading, reflecting, and kind of talking to me, even though I am not there. Then tech tools for permanent communication. We need to make sure we have permanent communication with our students. It's great that now we have, thanks to technology, we have so many tools. We have WhatsApp, we have email, we have internal email in different platforms, we have phone, we have SMS, we have so many different ways to communicate with our students. And finally, well-planned and organized process. So it doesn't mean that because it's distance education is less quality. I can assure you that no, it's the same or even more quality. Some people believe that distance education is not high quality, and that I used to think that some time ago, like some years ago when I was at the university. Now that I work at UNED and I see the quality assurance processes, and that I see how many different majors we have accredited by CNIS, for example, I can see the quality, which is amazing. And you see, this was said by Holmberg 1985. So when we talk about tech tools and when we talk about all these requisites, this is not new. This is not that old, but this is not new. We are not talking here about 2000 or 2010 when we had WhatsApp and when we had Instagram and Facebook. We are talking about tech tools for permanent communication, meaning the phone, or meaning letters as technology as well, okay? Now, teaching online, and this is one of my mottos, and this is what I think of every time I am going to start a class. Teaching online doesn't have to be emotionally distant. And for this, I want you to go to a Padlet. So you have the QR code over there, and I am going to copy the link for the Padlet as well. You're going to see a lot of different ideas over there because I actually have done this with teachers in the past, this similar presentation to this one. So I want you to go to that Padlet, and I want you to answer the question that you're going to find there. The link is in the chat. You can also use the QR code. And when you get into the Padlet, there is a plus button. You click on the plus button and you can share your ideas. There is a question. Let me just go ahead and show it to you. Give me just one moment. Okay. Going to go there. Give me just a moment. All right. So it's engaging emotionally. How do you engage students emotionally while online? And I want to hear your ideas. Again, you see that there are a lot of different ideas here. You're going to have this presentation At the end, I'm going to send you the link with the slides, and you can always go and revisit this Padlet. There are so many ideas because, again, this is like the third time I've been using this with my with teachers and students. And so when you, as a teacher, sit down to plan your class and you say, I did this activity last time to engage emotionally. I don't remember or I don't know off the top of my head, I cannot think of an activity. You can visit this Padlet and there are ideas here from other colleagues telling you you can do this. Engaging emotionally, online games and activities, making jokes with them and make funny activities, giving students the confidence, having a space for conversation about students feeling or how students feel, make them feel comfortable sharing their experiences, playing music, greeting each one of as they join. That is a great idea. I have found that I teach on Fridays night, and when I connect, I usually connect 10 minutes before. And then there is always the waiting list, or I always have the waiting room. And then I start admitting every person. And when each person joins, I make sure I greet them by name. And I say, hello, Tamara, how are you doing today? Hello, Jonathan, how are you feeling? Hello, Cynthia, it's great to have you here today. So that is a great idea, being a nice and funny teacher. Now, it's interesting because when we talk about a funny teacher, it's not that you have to be a clown, right? Because we're here to learn, not to be entertained. And that is something that we need to make sure. This is, I think it's Diane Larson Freeman. She's a great writer about education and learning languages. And she says that the classroom is not it's not a place to be entertained, but students need to be motivated. That is pretty much the phrase she said. So it's not that I'm going to entertain you today. It's we're going to have a great time while we learn. That is the idea, okay? I see that, let's see what else. Make students feel that that I'm their friend, or that they're not going to be punished for making mistakes. That's a great idea. How you engage emotionally with your students. Having a good attitude. If I, as a teacher, and I'm glad you wrote that idea over there. If I, as the teacher, connect and I start making faces and I start complaining about the technology and I start complaining about this process and I say, guys, let's see if we can make it till 11 because I don't feel good. I don't like Zoom. I actually feel this is a waste of time. How would you as a student feel? So my attitude as the teacher actually engages or doesn't engage my students emotionally. But if I start my class, even though I don't like this technology, if I start my class by saying, hello, it's great to see you again. I'm really happy that you're here. We're going to have a great time. I have a lot of activities for you. And my students see a good attitude. They are going to be emotionally engaged in my lesson, okay? So I'm going to go back to the presentation. Let me just show here, and I'm going to, okay? So now, some suggestions that I have for you. You gave me suggestions, and that's great because every time I go back to that Padlet and I find a lot of great ideas. These are some of my suggestions, 6 suggestions in total. Number 1, think about the early birds. And when you mentioned about greeting students when they connect, that is great. Think about playing some background music. What is the slide that I'm going to have so my students see when they enter? Welcome to today's class, and I have some rules over there. Or am I going to have a very quick activity with my students? I really liked 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were in the National Conference for Teachers of English, and every time they admitted us into the room, they started asking us to start sharing where we lived, what population we taught, and another question, usually how is the weather where you are. So that keeps me engaged and that makes me feel, oh, there is something going on here. But this is so weird when you enter a room and there's nobody talking and you don't see cameras on. You start wondering, am I in the right room? Is there something going on? Maybe my headset is not working. My computer is giving me some problems. But if you see some activity, you start getting involved and you start getting into the mood like, oh, I have arrived into my classroom and now we're going to start our class. Just a quick sign if you as a teacher, you don't feel like, oh, I don't really feel like I'm going to start talking right now. Just a slide that students can see, welcome to today's class. We will start at 10 o'clock. Something like that. That is a great idea. So think about early birds. There's always a student, or there are always some students who arrive early, okay? Ask genuine questions. And by genuine questions, it's questions that you mean you want to ask your students. If I ask my students, how do you feel today? And I'm going to start writing down some notes because my intention is while I ask this question and they start sharing, I'm going to complete this part of my lesson plan. That is not a genuine question. Your students really want you to listen to them. If you ask them a question, it's because you're going to listen. You're going to take the time to hear their answer and probably build on top of their answer as well, okay? So this is the part of genuine questions. If I ask you, how was your week? It's because I really want you to tell me a short or a long story about your week because I'm asking that question genuinely. The next suggestion is a warm-up. Something like what I did in this presentation, that was a very quick warm-up because of the time we had today, but something like a question. What is something you are grateful for today? I sometimes do warm-ups like Simon Says, or I do warm-up. Actually, the last activity we're going to do today, it's one that I also use as a warm-up, and it's where students get talking. So this actually engages my students. Community builders. Community builders are these activities that you prepare in which your students get to know each other by the person they are and not just as my classmate. So I can tell you, for example, there is an activity my students really like that is called Two Truths and One Lie. And it's basically they have to say 3 sentences. So 2 sentences are true about them, 1 sentence is false, and the order can be in any order. Their classmates need to figure out which is the lie, and that is really engaging for them. I also have another one that is called My Life in Numbers. They have to come up with 3 numbers that are meaningful to them. They show the numbers and then their classmates have to guess what those numbers mean. And actually that helps us know more everybody, like maybe your birthday, how many classmates or how many siblings you have, or how many pets do you have. I don't know, a date that changed your life, something like that. Individual touch point. When we saw the 7 requisites for distance education, we talked about communication, permanent communication. So there needs to be a space where students can individually touch point with the teacher. Okay, so that individual touch point is, where can I find my teacher? Some of you mentioned at the beginning, I feel alone in this process. So as teachers, we should make sure that doesn't happen. Students, you know there is a WhatsApp group, but if you need to find me, please send me a private message. And if I say that, I need to make sure I'm going to reply as soon as possible and not 20 hours later. If there is a platform in which they can upload their questions, we can actually tell them, like for example, at UNED, we need to reply 48 hours, at least 48 hours, no more than 48 hours after the question is posted. So what we teachers do is that we usually enter the platform every single day, and we have that permanent communication with our students. Right now, I'm working at Centro de Educación, en Centro en Educación a Distancia, CECED, at UNED. And this is with teachers. And many teachers usually have questions about their training processes. So what we try to do is to reply to them the same day they have the question. Why? Because if we are giving them a specific email address, it's they need to feel accompanied. So that individual touch point is really important. Look at the camera. I know it's difficult, but when you look at the camera, your students feel you are talking to them. There are some tricks that I apply. One, fortunately, my camera or my computer has a little light next to the camera. When I want to see the camera, I just look at the light, like right now, and I know you feel I'm looking at you. I'm looking directly into the camera, even though it's not the camera, it's the light that is next to there, because I cannot actually see the camera. Now, another thing when I work, for example, with Zoom is that I take the image of one of the people that it's projected or the camera of one person. I put it right below the camera. And if I look at that person, I'm going to, or everybody's going to feel I'm looking at you. But imagine if I am all the time, I'm talking and I'm looking somewhere else, I'm looking through the window and I'm talking to you, you don't feel connected. So it's important in that this is the same as having eye contact in the classroom. When I am working with my students in the classroom, I need to have eye contact because students have that feeling like the teacher is talking to me. And this is very interesting because we are not in the same place. I probably cannot see you right now, but people feel that connection like, oh, the teacher is talking to me, I'm going to pay attention. It's something that is there in the brain. I cannot explain that because I'm not a neurologist and I don't know about that neurological part. Okay. And then background noise, sorry, the background noise, it's really important, or background and noise. So what I did, my office is actually like 1 square meter. It's really small. It's in one part of my bedroom. But what I did is that I tried to have at least my background that is decent. If I cannot have that, I need to have a virtual background. So the background can be helpful or very, very distracting. The noise as well. That is why I told you at the beginning, I'm sorry in advance because of my dogs. They might interrupt, but the background noise might be really distracting. Imagine if I am right now having this talk with you and then people in my house start screaming and yelling and all of that. So how can we control? There are things we can control and things we cannot control. I can definitely not control my dogs. I can definitely not control the people going by on the street. I cannot control the cars, but I can tell people in my house, you know, I'm going to be in a meeting, so please talk at a lower voice. When I open this door, it's because the meeting is over or the class is over. Please, if you have to enter the room, make sure you let me know in advance so I turn off the camera while I continue teaching so I don't get distractions of people going on my back, right? So those are some things that we can actually do to control, and believe it, it is really important to students. It helps them not getting distracted, okay? Some other things that we need to take into account, routines. Routines really help students feel in a safer environment and they make the process easier. Why? When I enter the classroom and I know that the teacher is going to have a slide with some of the main like reminders for the day, or the teacher is going to project an agenda, and always the agenda is always there, I can keep track, and that is part of the self-regulation and self-instruction. Remember, I can say, oh, now the teacher is talking about these different things we can do in the classroom. So we're kind of really advanced into the talk today, right? And they make the process easier, mostly with young students like elementary school students or teenagers. And be yourself. Mistakes are a human quality and students value honesty. If I make something here, if I make something here that is human, like I make a mistake, I apologize and I continue, but I don't have to make a fuss about it, right? But be yourself. Let your students know, you know, I am trying this new software today. So if things don't go as expected, please, I'm sorry, but I really want to try it because I think this is a great tool. If you don't tell that to students, students might feel like, the teacher is using something he doesn't know. But if you tell them honestly, this is something really good, I want to try it, then you're going to your students are going to value that honesty. I am getting here a message, and this is also true about the noise. Noise is really triggering for students with autism spectrum disorder or ASD. So if I can control my background noise, I'm going to be helping everybody in the class, right? I'm not going to be only helping certain students, but I'm going to make sure my students feel respected and included, which is really important. Now it's time for synchronous versus asynchronous. Um, and I want you to use the chat one more time, and I want you to tell me, what is the difference between synchronous and asynchronous? What is the difference? When you see those two words, how do they differ from one another? Or are they the same? So you can type in the chat. Are they the same or are they different? Or the difference to me is the interaction. Asynchronous is when working by ourselves. I think the interaction is the difference. Synchronous is when I have to connect to meet or something in real time. Synchronous when we are with the teacher. Okay, great. I think all those answers pretty much make the differentiation between them. I prefer synchronous because I interact with the professor and classmates. I think it's a matter of getting used to, because sometimes, like you know, I have learned, right now I'm taking this course at Colipro and it's really asynchronous. And I feel really accompanied by the teacher. I post something in a forum and then like 12 hours later, I get the message, and at night I go into the class again and I feel I'm talking with the teacher. But that has to do a lot with our role as teachers. Now, what you said about that, synchronous learning happens at the same time. So it doesn't necessarily have to, to do with the teacher, but with the learning. Maybe I am not here in the class, but you come, you connect, and you start doing something together as part of a homework that is synchronous, because all of you are connected and learning at the same time. So that is the key element of synchronously or synchronous education. Real time interaction, again, between the teacher and the student, or between peers, between the students. Because maybe, again, it is a homework or it is an assignment, it is a discussion. So you're learning in real time with your students, not necessarily with your teacher. And structured is required. I mean, as a teacher, I need to have some structure, okay? Keep it simple. When you have synchronous interactions, and we're talking again about distance, about virtual, because virtual means we are using the computer, we're using a website, but in this virtuality right now, we are virtual synchronous learning, because all of us are connected into the same part and we are interacting, as Carol said. Interaction is happening in real time. So keep it simple. Don't keep it that complicated to your students. If I am going to use today, for example, I asked you to use Padlet and I asked you to use Mentimeter. If I ask you to use more and more tools, you're going to feel really overwhelmed and maybe you don't enjoy all of them. But if I use one or two tools, you're going to feel that was great, that was different, but it was simple. And then we have asynchronous. And in asynchronous, we have the concept of flipped learning. So basically, what we have is we are not learning at the same time, we're not learning in the same place. But if we have flipped learning, this allows for classroom time to deepen understanding and discussion. What is flipped learning? What we do at UNED, for example. I ask, or we have our students, they at home, they have to read a chapter, they have to participate in a forum, they have to create a chart, a T-chart with the main concepts of the chapter. And then when we come to class, I am going to explain the main concepts. I'm going to go deep into those concepts, or I'm going to clarify any questions you may have. That is flipped learning. You do the learning at home first, and then you come and you ask your teacher. When we are in a face-to-face environment, this usually happens the other way around. We learn in class, you do homework to review. we learn in class, you do homework to review. So in flip learning, and flip learning can be used also in face-to-face interactions, in presence, not only in virtuality. We can actually tell our students, I want you to watch this video, do this, this, and that. And next week, we're going to talk about that. And I have found that that is amazing. Our students pay a lot of attention and they learned a lot when that happens. And usually in asynchronous learning, or in terms of distance learning, we use a learning management system. Now, synchronously or asynchronously. But if my interactions are going to be asynchronously, I need to use that learning management system efficiently and effectively. Meaning I need to make my students do as much as possible with the least resources, that is efficiently and effectively. I need to make sure the activities I put in the learning management system actually serve their purpose and help my students achieve the goals, okay? Now, when you get the presentation, if you click here in the Teacher John in this slide, you're going to go into a YouTube video. And this YouTube video was one that I created for my students for asynchronous and flip learning. Actually, I was studying with my fourth graders last year, There Is and There Are. I asked them to watch that video. And then when we met, they had already watched the video, and that was amazing. But you're going to see one example of how you can actually use these flip learning activities, okay? Now we need also to prioritize, and here I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I just want you to look at this. This is pretty much summarizes the zone of proximal development theory. And we talk about scaffolding, meaning the teacher's help, and the challenge, meaning what students need to do. So when I think about the activities, and by prioritizing, I mean I need to think about these activities. Are they going to be synchronously done or asynchronously? Why? Because if I have, for example, an activity that is high challenge and low scaffolding, meaning it's really difficult, but the teacher is not there, the teacher is not going to support me, I am going to get frustrated and anxious. And if this is done asynchronously, that is a problem, okay? If my activity is low scaffolding and low challenge, and we do it, for example, synchronously, my students might get bored. So at all times, when I prioritize, I need to think about the activity needs to have a high challenge, but I need to provide high scaffolding. How do I provide high scaffolding if I am not there? If this is asynchronously, I need to give my students more materials. I need to provide them with a video, with a good text, with an article, with many different things, with a chart, with an interactive presentation, so they can go and they can learn, and then they can actually carry out the challenge. So I am giving them scaffolding that they need for the challenge, okay? So prioritize and think about that. If the challenge is high and the scaffolding is high, we're going to be successful. We're not going to get comfortable, we're not going to get bored, or we're not going to get frustrated, which are some of the feelings you mentioned at the beginning in today's presentation, okay? And now I'm going to show you some tools that will actually help. Let me go there and show you very quickly some of the tools and how I use those tools, okay? So these are some of the tools. We have Classroom Screen, we have ClassTools.net, we have Bamboozle, Quizzes, and We'll Decide. So let me go first into Quizzes. So if I go into Quizzes, this one is very similar to Kahoot. If you've used Kahoot before, you prepare your quiz, and you can actually, for example, let's say that I'm going to work with my students on parts of the house. So I have this quiz and I can do two things. I can start a live quiz, meaning in the synchronous session, we're going to play, or I can assign these as homework. And when I assign these as homework, you see that I'm going to give them the deadline for them to complete this homework. And then I'm going to assign, and I'm going to get a link. I send the link to my students, they're going to be playing, and I get a report, which is amazing. Now, what I'm doing is during the week, I am keeping my students motivated and expectant, and I'm going to tell them, okay, Next week, when we come to class, we're going to review this quiz and we will see who the winner was, okay? Or I can also play live. And what I like about live quizzes is that I can actually play in a team, for example. So I can play in a team and I have my students, they join different teams and they are competing in a safe environment, one against the other. So this is one of the tools. Again, quizzes, Kahoot is another one that I like. I prefer quizzes. I don't know, I have my personal preference, but Kahoot is also one that you can use. When you talk about games and interaction and feeling more like entertained and fun activities. Again, we are learning, but we're having fun. Then I have this other one that is Classroom Screen. Classroom Screen is a screen I can use in my classroom. So let's imagine that right now I'm going to do a new share and I'm going to share the sound. Let's say that right now I'm going to give you a very quick break. And then I say, okay, I'm going to give you a break. And this break is going to be, let's see, um, this is going to be 1 second, okay? This is 1 second break or 2 second break. So I project my screen, I share my sound, and then I send my students to break, and let's see what happens when we finish our break. You hear a bell. So this is something, so I'm helping my students for certain activities as well. We're working synchronously and I tell my students, you have 5 minutes to complete this individually. Okay, you can use the timer. We can use a stopwatch. If I want a student to talk on his own, this is an impromptu speech and I want him to talk for about 2 minutes. I'm going to start, and when the 2 minutes are up or are over, you have to stop talking. Don't stop talking before that, okay? I can use a clock just to show them the time. I can use a calendar. I can have the traffic light here and I can make them a little bigger. So I can say, okay, I'm going to have the traffic light. If you see the traffic light in red, it's because I don't want anybody to do anything else but just listen to the teacher. If I have the yellow light, this is something I use with my students. I tell them, okay, you see the yellow light is because I want you to copy what you see over there on the screen. And if I have the green light, is because I want you to participate, open your microphones and repeat after me. And so this is an organized mess in an online interaction, right? We have work symbols. So we have silence, whisper, ask your neighbor, or work together. We can have a QR code or create a QR code. So for example, if I want to create a QR code for this Padlet, I'm going to copy the link. I'm going to come to the classroom screen. I paste it here and I tell my students, scan this code, please. So you see very quickly, you get a code that your students can use with their phones. This makes things faster and students are going to say, wow, my teacher is a pro because he's using QR codes. Maybe I don't know how to create them. I don't have a website that I can use, but this one helps me do that, okay? I can play with the dice. I can have 1, 2, or 3 dice, and my students, we can roll the dice and they're going to get the results. Again, this I can use myself as a teacher, but I can also share the link with my students and I can say, I want you to use the dice in your breakout rooms and I want you to actually play this game. So you roll the die that you find in classroomscreen.com, okay? Now, there seems to be a problem over there. Let me just go back and let's see if I can get the will decide. The willdecide.com pretty much is a wheel that I can actually spin. Then what I do is very simple. I go and I change here whatever I want. I can have a question, I can have names, I can have phrases. And when I'm ready, I apply wheel changes. If I want, I copy this link on top, the URL, and then that is the link for this wheel. So I will never have to change it again. And we're going to do it very quickly. I'm going to spin the wheel. And what I want you to do when I spin the wheel is I want you to share your favorite and whatever is here in the chat, please. So what is your favorite time of the day? I want you to please go ahead and type in the chat. What is your favorite time of the day? Very quickly, as soon as I see 2 or 3 participations, I'm going to spin the wheel again. Night, morning, night. Very good. One more. What is your favorite place? What is your favorite place? My house, the mountain, the beach, my room, the bed. Very good. Another one. Let's see, we get the same one. So we rotate again. Okay, what is your favorite color? What is your favorite color? Black, red, pink, green, red, orange, blue, green. Excellent. Very, very good. So you see, you can actually have your students do certain things. Like instead of me just telling the students, I'm going to ask you a question and I want you to answer this question. This might be really boring to the students, but if they see this, what is it? The element of surprise, like, oh, there are many questions. Let's see what question we get to answer. I spin the wheel and there is going to be a question. So my students feel like this is more interesting than just the teacher reading some sentences or some questions, okay? And then this one that I really like, which is Bamboozle. So Bamboozle is a website in which you create this game. It's similar to Jeopardy. Once you have the game created, you create it just as you create quizzes or Kahoot. You type the question and then the answer, and you have many options. You can share the students, you can share the link with the students so they can actually study, for example, and if they click here in study, they're going to study. And it says, mention 2 vegetables from the farm. And they can study and they can say, oh, 2 vegetables, I think corn, what is it, cabbage, carrots. And then they see answers may include tomato, carrot, onion, potato. And they say, oh, yes, I got it correct. So they get some points. Make a sentence using there is or there are. Oh, there are many horses. And so there are horses. Good, that was good. So they can actually study. They can also play on their own, or they can play with another person. And I can use this here I can use it here with you. So I'm going to go there and I'm going to use it very quickly. I'm going to have only one team, and then power-ups. I'm going to have many different power-ups. And the options, I can change the options. And once I have it, it's going to be classic. Okay. So you see the different numbers. I want one person to type one number over here. The first number I get is the one I'm going to click. 3. Okay, number 3. So make a sentence using there is and there are. Then the students are going to say the sentence using the microphones. And as a teacher, I can check and I say, oh, yes, you did it correctly. It's not the same as here, but you did it correctly. So I'm using, again, feedback and all these things that we've been talking about. And you see that team 1 now has 3 points. I see number 2 over there. It says you win 25 points. Great. So you see that now you have more points. Again, what we're doing here is we're using more tools that will help us engage emotionally. Students really like to play. Number 4, what is the place? What is one place in the farm? Can you mention in the chat one place that we can find in the farm? Inside the farm, there are many different places. What is one of those places? Please type it in the chat. I want to hear your answers or see your answers. And let's see, the barn, stable, okay. Any other places inside the farm? Lake. Okay, so you see I have here barn, pond, fields, crops, pigsty, chicken coop, many different. So you get the point. Great. Okay. So you see again, students are participating, and here, of course, we are 91 people. I cannot ask everybody to participate, but we can actually give the link to the students. We send them into a breakout room and we have them play on their own. So we are using autonomy, we're using self-regulation, and we're also providing them with the material they need. It's not always the teacher, the one that has to do everything, okay? And that is something really, really important for us to know, okay? So now, the last activity that I want to use with you today, and this is one that I told you about, is the positivism exit ticket. I'm going to share with you a link. Let me go there. I'm going to share with you this link. So when you get here, you just have the fortune cookie generator. I want you to make your fortune, and it says, joys are often the shadows, cast your sorrows. So what I want you to do is, I want you to copy this. You can copy it and you can paste it into the chat and also say something positive. What is the positive thing about this? If you don't like it, you just make your new fortune. People are naturally attracted to you. And then you can actually type your answer. So here is the link in the chat. I want you to go ahead, click the fortune cookie generator. And now that you have that, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And also, I'm going to see the chat. Also, if somebody wants to read aloud, you can raise your hand and I can give you the time. You can unmute yourself, read your fortune, and tell me what is positive about that fortune cookie. This is our exit ticket for today. And this is another activity I like to do with my students, what I call the exit tickets. Exit tickets are usually very quick activities we can do with our students, and they are to refresh or to review the concepts that we have been doing, or it can be something like this, something just to forget about the class and use the language. So my exit ticket is an intention to use the language, okay? Kendall Sivaha, you are very talented in many ways. You will marry your lover, Jennifer. That's a very good fortune cookie, okay? You cannot love. I love that one. I got that one some days ago. You cannot love life until you live the life you love. So that is really interesting, okay? Everyone, let's see. You will be called in to fulfill a position or high honor and responsibility. Wow, that's really tough, right? Very good. There's no greater pleasure than seeing your loved ones prosper. I agree with that one, okay? So you see, with activities like this, you can actually encourage your students, okay? Now, let me just share very quickly here to show you this last slide here. So basically, thank you very much. There you have my email address, both from UNED and MEP, and you have 3 links here. I want to show you, well, you know, Facebook, YouTube, I have a Facebook page that is called Teacher John, and I have a YouTube channel. I haven't posted videos in a long time because things have been crazy. And then I have this one that I really like, Pearl Trees. So when you go to Pearl Trees, I'm going to show you that one. Pearl Trees is basically a website in which I put all my favorite links, and you can access them and you can see them, okay? So you see that I have, for example, tools for presentations, articles about education. I have tools to get evidence, like to create portfolios. I have things for presentations. I have gestores de imágenes. I have páginas or pages from MEP. I have things related to teaching of English. So if I go there, I can see online dictionaries, integrated skills, flashcards, vocabulary, grammar. So let's say that you're looking for something about reading. You go into reading, and then you're going to find all these websites that I have found that will help my students improve in reading. And basically, that is my collection of things, but you can access it anytime. You just go into the slides, you click in the star, right? And then you go into pearltrees.com/JonathanEM, and you're going to find my Pearl Trees. So I'm going to share right now with you the link to the presentation, and I'm opening the space for questions. Thank you very much, because you have been such a great audience participating and everything. So if you have any questions that you want to type into the chat, or that you want to open your microphones, remember always to raise your hand just because of order. And we don't want everybody talking at the same time, as I always tell my students, right? So thank you very much again, and I'm here for questions.
Jonathan, thank you very much. What a great presentation. Everything a teacher, an online teacher, wants to hear and know about, right? Wow. So guys, I don't know if you want to participate. Vero, you have a question?
have a question actually. I just want to say that I'm amazed. All the time I was like, oh my God, he's right, he's right, he's right. And thank you for your presentation. It was excellent and also filled me with energy and with ideas. And your explanation was very, very clear. And I am grateful for your time for sure. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Vero. That's great to hear, and I'm really grateful that you find the ideas useful. And I encourage you to do things like this. I have to tell you that the first time I presented somewhere, well, a friend of mine referred me to one activity they had, and I was really worried. I thought like I might probably not be that good, but then you realize that you have ideas you can share with other people. So once you get into the business, we always need teachers who share ideas with us, and it's great always to hear people. So
Great, Jonathan. Yes, sharing is growing, right? Okay, we have another question. Julian?
Well, it's not a question. It's like, I just wanted to say that I wish more classes were like this, because I really found it interesting to watch the whole thing. And thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. I'm pretty sure you're going to start getting more classes like this very soon. This has been a learning curve, and we should not blame teachers for not doing things like this. As I tell you, I've been in the market of distance education for almost 5 years, and I'm still learning. So I cannot imagine how difficult it was for teachers who had never done something like this. And then from one day to the next, they say, Cynthia, next week you're teaching totally online because we're closing the university. And maybe Cynthia had never done that. So I cannot imagine the stress and everything, like, how am I going to do all of that? So we shouldn't blame teachers, because we are in the learning process. And I'm sure things are going to improve very soon.
Yeah, correct, Jonathan. I was about to say that, yeah, it's been very frustrating and stressful, even, you know, for professors, for teachers. And that was one of my questions. What is one of your recommendations for, you know, digital immigrants or technophobic teachers, right? What would it be one great recommendation according to your experience?
Okay, so digital immigrants, we are always learning. And once you realize that you're a digital immigrant, that is, I think that is the first step. Realizing like, I don't know it, I need to find out. I personally feel we teachers have this amazing ability to learn by ourselves. So I encourage you to go in YouTube, for example. There's a video or many videos for every single thing. You say, you know, I watched Jonathan use Bamboozle, but I don't know how to do it. You go into YouTube and there is a tutorial step by step on how to create a Bamboozle. And actually that is part of the process. You can also ask other teachers. Don't feel like, because I'm a teacher, I need to know it all. That's not true. If I don't know, I can look for help. And I say, oh, I think Cynthia is a great teacher. I saw her using this tool. I'm going to ask her and she can help me, or she can at least guide me and send me some links to do that. And as a matter of fact, I mean, we're always learning. My sister, my younger sister, is always teasing me because I tell her I don't know how to use Instagram. I have never liked it that much, but I see that more and more people are using it, and young people use it a lot. So I said, I need to learn to use Instagram. And I'm always telling her, like, but how do you do this? How do you do that? I don't understand, because this is not like Facebook. She teases me a lot, but it has been a great opportunity to realize that we are always in constant learning. And because you don't like something doesn't mean that you don't have to learn it. Sometimes I don't like it that much, but if this is what I'm going to be doing, I need to learn how to like it at least a little bit. I don't think there's nothing you don't like about this. There should be, find that particular thing that you say, I really like, I don't know, being close to my family, and stick to that. Stick to that, and then you're going to continue liking, because I am next door to my family. I don't have to travel long distances. So the least you can find, that is the thing that will help you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Are there any other questions? I already dropped the link to the attendance for today's presentation, so please fill it out. All right, Julian, do you have another question? You still have your hand raised.
Oh no, I don't, sorry.
All right. Okay, I have another question, Jonathan. Let me see, I have something here in the chat. Thank you. This presentation was really interesting. All right. Okay, I always ask my students, my online teachers, they are, getting prepared to become teachers, to always have the instructions written on a PowerPoint slide, right? So that they can guide students as they instruct them, right? As they say the instructions. Is there any other, tip that you can give my students and get ideas on how to, scaffold the instructions in any other way?
Mhm. I have to say that what I have found really useful is not only having the slides ready, but sharing the slides with the students. What I have done, let me see if I can find it very quickly. What I have done with my students in the academy I'm working right now is that I prepare a presentation with the skeleton of the class. So let me share it very quickly here. And I share the link with them right before the class. I share that link so you can see it actually here. We have the date, and then I have what we're going to be doing. So you see, this was actually last week. I had the fortune cookie, and not only sharing the link with them or sharing the screen with them, but also sharing the link, because they can actually
Nice.
go and look at the screen and they can actually explore on their own. So what I have found is that using Google Slides or uploading to OneDrive, for example, in Microsoft is a great idea. And then I share the link, and it doesn't matter. I can be talking and they are following maybe on their phones. And we need to remember that some students are auditory, some students are visual,
Correct.
and some students are kinesthetic. So the more opportunities we give, the better.
Wow, awesome. Thank you very much. All right, I guess there are no more questions. So on behalf of the organizing committee of this first virtual academic week, I would like to thank you, Jonathan, for sharing your experience, sharing your knowledge, your tips for everything you just did. All right, it was a great eye-opening presentation for online teachers or future online teachers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, because as you said, sharing is growing, and every time I share my ideas,
Correct.
I find out more things, and I go and I look for more options and more opportunities. And so thank you very much. And I really want to congratulate Universidad Nacional for this great effort, because we teachers in Costa Rica need more spaces like this. And I
Correct.
remember when I was a student at the university, I never had anything like this. And I think students will really appreciate this.
Correct. Thank you very much. So see you in a future event, right? Con la una.
Yes, hopefully we'll see each other there.
So bye-bye. Thank you very much.